good pitch may not always be a good product. There are some people who pitch really well but can't build, and then there are some people who can build but can't pitch really well.
I'm sure you heard a lot of pitches. Can you give an example of what's a bad pitch?
You don't need to get all your bets right.
What do you think separates a good agency from a great agency?
The great ones really focus on the outcome and are not afraid to challenge the client and have the conviction that they're taking a bet and can really follow through. I think the default saying that specialists are bad or generalists are bad, I think is not a solid argument.
Hey there, welcome to Marketing Mavericks with Indiefolio. Today we have Utkarsh Amitabh with us, who's the founder of Network Capital. We discuss Utkash's entire journey where he's been a CMO of a large unicorn to having a lot of work done in corporate social responsibility, working with some large brands and many things like authoring a book. And we explore all his opinions. We unpack a lot of advice for marketeers, the creative fraternity, as well as founders who are trying to do a 0 to 1. Thanks a lot for your time and welcome to the podcast, Utkarsh.
It's my pleasure.
Utkarsh, this conversations aimed at helping young marketers, especially in India, shape their career going forward. Usually a lot of young people today are trying to answer questions about what they should focus on, what they should learn, and so on. When I looked at, what you did, right, I think the story and the roadmap to being a chief marketing officer is pretty unconventional in your case. Usually you do an MBA in marketing, you're a brand manager for several years, and then you kind of grow up that ladder. You did engineering, then I also saw you dabbled with philosophy towards the end. You've been a lecturer, you're an author, you run a network. You also have headed, marketing for a unicorn, and the list goes on, right? So I see a lot of experiments, a lot of trials, also a big focus for social responsibility as well. So, there's so much advice which goes around for young marketers. You need to be very focused, find a niche, double down on that. People also say if you're young, you try everything. So it's such a contradictory opinion. Can you kind of take us back to when you were young and what was your mindset of just doing a good job as a person who's young and wanting to build a good career?
I always had multiple interests, engineering, philosophy, liberal arts, business. So I wasn't very clear, like many people, about one career path that would offer all of them. So I decided to follow the deep generalist approach, something that I hadn't put the right terminology for. But the more I dabbled, the more I discovered that there's no need to be put in a box without you discovering the contours of the box. So I decided to study and get a range of experiences from consulting to Teach for India to Microsoft. And all of them really helped me find the way to start a company, which is Network Capital. And education was a really important facet as well. Oxford, INSEAD, Ashoka, Delhi College of Engineering, DPS, my school, all of them combined gave me the intellectual frameworks and the curiosity to really double down on what I was interested in and then try and find a career that could combine all of these interests. And the way I discovered this was to do a range of micro experiments to see what works, what doesn't, how do I feel. And then through these micro experiments, nudge my way forward. And this is the approach that I advanced at Network Capital because I realized that most young professionals, students are not clear with what they want to do with their lives early on. And in order to figure out, you can't just read a book just the way you can't, watch somebody riding a bicycle and learn to, do the same. So by giving them a safe space, a community, and the right kind of content, we thought that people could explore what they were interested in, then deepen their interests, and then find out a career with the help of a community or a network that they'd built and go deep into it. So explore and then exploit, or follow the deep generalist mindset, which is go broad and then go deep, generally tends to be a useful construct for people who are interested in a variety of things.
Going broad and then deep works as a fantastic framework, but people are apprehensive with this approach for the following reason, especially in India, at least if I can tell you that I spent 4 years, 3 years trying these things, but I'm not compounding is what they feel. That I have a colleague, let's say they spent 6 years in consulting. I did 2 years in consulting, then 2-3 years somewhere else, 2-3 years somewhere else. Will I be left behind? So how do you deal with that mental, problem which you may be facing while taking such a call?
I think comparing your career or your life to another person and deciding whether you're doing well or not is generally a very dangerous plan, because everyone has their own wins and losses, their success criteria. And people should really try their best to follow their own game. And as I write in one of my Harvard Business Review articles, it makes sense to build your category of one rather than spend all your day dealing with envy of all kinds and seeing what other people are doing. So that's what I advise. The internet can be a very envy-inducing place, and everyone seems to have accomplished a lot, failed a lot. And if you calibrate based on external metrics, I think you'll burn out pretty quickly. So follow your own game is what I always try and suggest people.
A lot of people who are interested in marketing also see a lot of career paths of folks who've, let's say, in engineering, spent a long time in the market and actually learn through experience. But you also see that marketing has become such a matured place that formal education is critical. Now, with your work with Network Capital, even your collaboration with Niti Aayog, you've done a lot of work around education as well as mentorship, right? So I wanted to get a perspective on education in marketing, right? Today, if I'm young, do I need to have an MBA? Do I need to have a master's? Or can I, if I've, let's say, done engineering for 5 years, I hate it, I tried a bunch of things, now I know I want to get into marketing. What's the best way for me to transition, and how useful is education?
I think history is a great revealer. So for somebody who's interested in any space, you should dive deep into companies you admire, look at what they did well, what they learned from mistakes. And thankfully, there are so many podcasts that are available, so many books to read. So availability of information is no longer a problem. What could be a problem is sometimes people just run out of energy, or they feel too scattered going from one source to the other. And these can be avoided if one doesn't necessarily keep looking around, pick something, go deep, use history as a lever to understand the current market trends, and then use the current market trends to see what's the unique value you can add in that. Some people can be good storytellers. Some people can be good with data. Some people can combine data and storytelling and create their own unique niche. So these kind of inward exploration before you go on to the market and start applying for jobs or start looking for a next adventure can be a very useful construct. So I personally listen and read a fair bit. It's part of my requirement at my PhD as well at Oxford. But this kind of self-directed learning to complement what you've studied is helpful. And with regards to an MBA, I think for me it was quite helpful. INSEAD is a great school, and I learned a lot from my peers and professors. So each one should choose their own adventure. And generally, MBA education or education overall is changing quite a bit. So it makes sense for people to decide what works for them and what doesn't.
You've written a bunch of things around, hard work, and I think you've actively challenged hustle culture. Coming from India, once again, you always feel, you almost feel like, you're doing disjustice to yourself by like not working harder, right? If you're not working till night, you almost feel, oh my God, I think I'm doing something wrong, because we've been like brought up like that from school days also. What's your opinion there, right? Why is the hustle culture aspect not good? And again, if I'm young, I want to, be great at what I do. If hard work's not the answer, what's the right approach?
Look, being stressed is not the equivalent of being effective. Burning a certain number of hours may not be. Although there are phases in which you really have to give in the right number of hours, it could be very taxing at certain points in time. So I'm all for that. But using that as a default option and using it as a proxy for success can be misleading, because those two parameters cannot always be in sync. As we have seen over and over again, if people and companies don't know what they're building and what they're going after, the number of hours can give you a false sense of comfort. And my provocation to hard work is that look at phases. When you need to give in all-nighters and you need to do it day in and day out, you should. But there are phases where a different kind of work is required, which is to figure out more exploratory. And there are phases when perhaps rest is required so that you can bring your best on to the next day. And people should be able to modulate. And the same is true for companies, and not use hard work as a proxy for seeing where you're headed and why.
Do you have advice for anybody who's wanting to, embrace what you just said, but is in an environment, let's say, who is with a large company, genuinely likes the space of the company, maybe even the work, but that culture optimizes a lot for hard work, which, as you said, is sometimes stressful. In a situation like this, should we just quit? Or is there a better way to actually fix this problem?
Well, stress can be good. Stress can be a way to really get your best out. Stress can also be a way for you to really discover whether you're onto the right thing or not. And using perpetual stress as an operating system can be dangerous, but bursts of stress can be helpful and can help in figuring out, going deep, shipping a product, getting something to market. So I would say that if the environment is using, again, stress as a proxy for effectiveness, that's just not strategically sound. What I'm not saying is that there won't be periods of stress where you will be able to get to that point and really double down.
Okay, fair enough. I want to now actually go a little bit specific with the whole concept of category of one, right? For all the audiences who usually tune into our podcast. So that's young marketers. We're also home to a large pool of agency owners, creative freelancers. That's what People does, by the way, which is my company. And the third thing is a lot of founders who are taking their young company 0 to 1. I think that concept which you speak about is relevant to each of them. So I'll unpack it one by one, right? First, I want to actually go and talk about if I'm a marketer and I'm a young marketer, and I'm in an overcrowded market today in marketing. Everybody says they are a marketer. How can I really differentiate myself, and how does the category of one thinking help me individually to beef up, let's say, my profile?
Let's say when you combine disciplines and when you combine best of both the worlds, you tend to create something really interesting. So think of fashion and technology. There are many fashion companies, there are many technology companies. At the intersection of fashion and technology, people are able to build a category of one. Usually magic happens at interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary fields. And for me, again, like being trained in philosophy, engineering, business, etc., gives me a unique way of thinking. Similarly, having worked in nonprofits, fast-growing companies, unicorns, started a company, etc., it gives me a unique vantage point to combine disciplines and bring something unique to the table. Because we often focus a lot on specialization, and specialization is a very helpful thing. But specialization can also backfire, again, if you haven't done the homework and for figuring out what the specialization should be for. So I would say that companies should really look for specialists if they are so inclined, but also really pave the way and encourage people to work across teams or bring ideas from one industry that may not be related directly to the other and see what can be done. Apple did that, Microsoft did that. A lot of fashion companies have done that. And I think as artificial intelligence becomes more embedded in what we do, that could be super helpful.
You spoke about specialization and impact for the creative fraternity. Generally, if you want to start your own independent business, either as an agency owner of a boutique shop or as a freelancer, the usual advice which is given to you is pick a niche, double down, do good work, you'll get known and expand. Um, so, when I look at your advice and when I look at what's happening with AI, today, creative people, if they have an idea, they can be the scriptwriter, they can be the animator, they can be the director, and God knows what all. So I wanted to kind of ask you, what's your general perspective there? Do you feel in the content creation space for creative people, now that we have AI going and making everything prompted, right? Your craft of specialization is getting prompted. Do you think specialization, picking a niche, is still solid advice?
Specialization, especially for things where you have deep interest in, can most certainly be a source of happiness, joy, inward satisfaction. Specialism as a default, that we only want specialists, in the long run can backfire, because we have to compete with AI and other ways in which technology is shaping the way we learn, the way organizations learn. So AI is also upskilling. AI is also getting better. These days, a lot of large artificial intelligence companies, they are training their data, hiring a lot of people to embed logic in what they're doing. So you need people to work across teams. You need people to be able to work with different kind of specialists. So there's an emergence of managers called human data managers or data specialists, which have an intrinsically human component. And that job description includes being able to work with a range of technology players, a range of liberal arts concepts. And this is an exciting space, or at least could be, if we just change the way we look at the problem. I think the default saying that specialists are bad or generalists are bad, I think, is not a solid argument, because it's not really addressing anything important. It's just saying that this is the hot trend now. Hence, this is the hot trend that will remain. And as time has proven, that's often not the case.
Absolutely, there's always a lot of nuance to these things, and that kind of goes away in a lot of chatter. Coming now to the company's perspective, as an entrepreneur myself, you have to be differentiating. You need a USP. Category of one is pretty much out there as something people know that they have to do. But there's a lot of confusion there. Do I be a champion of a function, a category? Do I solve one problem for a large market? Do I only solve a lot of problems for a small market? So again, there's so much confusion there. Do you have a framework that as a company, how do I find category of one in what I should do as a service offering?
Yeah, many companies, large and small, have tried to go after one category just because another company is building that category. That happened with Whoop watches, which are the rage right now, and Amazon, and in the whole smartwatch space, to give you an example. But there are companies that emerged that did really well. And often the ones that emerged and did really well is because they had a conviction and they went deep and they didn't want to become another Me Too. There's a famous French philosopher, René Girard, who came up with the mimetic theory. And essentially that says that a lot of learning that happens comes from our desire to be other people, right? And I think to some extent there's good mimesis, where you learn from others and see how we can, scale this further, build something new. And there's bad mimesis, where you just try to bring somebody down because things are not working out the way we're expected. So good mimesis can be a source of a lot of positivity in the company. Bad mimesis, on the other hand, can lead to a lot of destruction, wasted time and effort, and so forth. So what we need to be careful of is, as you build your category of one, look for what sets you apart and go deep. And should you want to expand, you can, of course, take inspiration from others, but let not that become the only story that you're telling.
Fantastic. No, I think fully second that. I want to now talk about passion economy, the side hustle revolution, again, stuff you've touched upon quite a bit. In fact, IndieFolio's whole network really buys into that idea. I wouldn't say we are side hustlers as such, but these are people who are in the passion economy, the knowledge economy, the talent economy, a lot of words for various things today. And I again wanted to extract some ideas in advertising, around this particular conversation. Um, in India, there is a lot of conversation around the end of the AOR, which is the agency on record, primarily because of the passion economy. Maybe 10 years, 15 years ago, large brands had one agency who did everything for them. But now brands are realizing, oh, there are these experts who are independent, or there is a group of 4 people who run a studio who will actually do a much better job. It doesn't have the bureaucracy, the back and forth, etc. And they've started working with pockets of teams versus one agency on record. And we're really trying to kind of fuel that transition, at least within India and advertising. So I wanted to kind of, ask you around what's your general take? What do you think the passion economy can do, let's say, particularly in advertising? Do you think that the future of consulting, creative, all would be more about independent people? Or will a lot of consulting companies, advertising agencies continue to grow, and the right career path will continue to be working with a large org versus setting up your own shop?
To some extent, AI can be a great leveler. Now you can do the same amount of work with fewer resources, but the quality needs to improve. Ultimately, your output needs to speak for yourself. So when I'd written the book, AI was much less talked about at that time. Metaverse was a bit more in vogue. But with AI being very much a part of most people's life, most creators' lives, it'll be helpful for them to use that as a tool to level the playing field, look at the competition, not by the number of people they have or the amount of resources they have, but how interestingly they can use the technology to uplift their skills. And of course, being nimble or being alone in that process can be a huge advantage, but your mindset needs to be that. And organizations also need to change their mindset that a large organization may not be the only choice, or it could need a complement. There could be other people who come and supplement what one agency is doing. And it also de-risks them, because a range of people working on clearly defined deliverables, or perhaps working with each other, can ultimately lead to a better output. And I think the number of jobs that are available are anyway reducing in alarming rates in certain industries. So to some extent, it is quite possible that many people work for themselves or work in smaller groups. And it may not be the fastest growing startup, but it could very well be a respectable source of living that pays the bills and does much more. There are cases that I documented in my book of people who were earning a very large sum of money by doing intrinsically stuff that they were passionate about, and did that really well. AI changed the equation to some extent, because everyone became a writer overnight. Everyone started producing. But one can really tell whether something is being written with the care, or is it just LinkedIn cringe content, or a tweet that is just meant to provoke and excite and not really leave anyone better off.
Correct. Within the conversation, we have a mini series. We ask all our guests. Usually all the folks we have from marketing work with a bunch of agencies and creative people, over their career. I'm assuming that's the same for you. I wanted to ask you, right? What do you think separates a good agency from a great agency?
I often think that many agencies that at least I've hired or seen work with, they tend to keep the client happy, or tend to want to keep the client happy and correct the monthly, check at the end of it. And the great ones really focus on the outcome and are not afraid to challenge the client and have the conviction that they're taking a bet and can really follow through. And it comes across, that's how reputation builds. You don't necessarily need an order taker. And AI does a good enough job of that. And AI agents can perhaps start doing some of that job. But this would be a challenge, surprise, and deliver would be the hallmark of a good agency.
Couldn't agree more. You've invested also in companies as an angel investor as well. And again, all the people in our community also pitch either to get funding, pitch to get clients, or pitch to their bosses to kind of approve a campaign, right? I'm sure you heard a lot of pitches, over the years. Just to have some fun with it, right? Can you maybe give an example of what's a bad pitch and use that as a way to, tell people what not to do while selling a particular idea?
I think a good pitch is sufficiently detailed. It includes the usual things like why you, why now, what does the landscape, what's something you understand about the industry that others don't, what's the real opportunity. And you can also tell that the person has given it a good amount of thought about what does the future look like and is able to paint that. I call this phenomena world building. So good pitchers are usually good world builders. But I also want to caution people that a good pitch may not always be a good product. There are some people who can pitch really well but can't build, and then there are some people who can build but can't pitch really well. So one advantage again with AI, etc., is that you can fine tune. If you perhaps not a native speaker of a particular language, you can take the help and get to that point. And I think one should not be shy of saying that, hey, these are the parts of my pitch which are not very clear. In one of the books I read, an interesting pitch said that started with, what are the reasons you should not invest in the company? And that sort of shows awareness that you've thought about what are the weaknesses, which are questions investors asking regardless. But by preempting them, you've actually gone a step further.
Absolutely. I think it puts so much trust when you go and start with the fact that, hey, this is probably what I am aware it's missing, but probably they have a roadmap at least to experiment and fix those. Great. I think I wanted to now just end the podcast, and I wanted a parting thought from you. As I said, a lot of young marketeers are usually trying very hard to understand today, how do I be relevant, with AI changing everything in marketing and creation and content. We're speaking about how specialization as a fundamental point is probably changing. So, if you can maybe tell yourself this, right, as a way to say, okay, I'm young and I'm trying to kind of be relevant for the next year. What are the kind of skills and what kind of mindset should I double down on so I have a successful career going forward?
Look, one is be prepared for disappointments and failures. That's inevitably the rate of failure, rate of disappointment has increased quite a bit for people, and that's again part of the game. Second is that surround yourself with a community. You don't need to be in the toxic positivity or toxic negativity spiral, but be around people who can support you through the journey. And remember that you don't need to get all your bets right. You need to get 1 or 2 or 3 bets right in a 10-year horizon to really have something worthwhile. And this sort of approach reduces the pressure, but it also gives you time to regroup. What happens is that the rate at which industry changes and things happen, it's sometimes faster than humans learn. So you need to give yourself some breathing room, some time to learn in order to make the most of it. And this learn it all, learning mindset, learning agility, just the rigor of figuring this out on your own and with the help of the community can be super helpful for people. And I wish all your listeners the very best.
Fantastic. What a great note to end the podcast on. I hope you had fun.
I definitely did. Thank you, Kamal.
Thank you so much for joining in. And yeah, for everybody who's stuck on, thank you so much. If you'd like another marketing leader, please like, share, and subscribe. A new episode will come out super soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.